So we're back for another edition of the Vandy Program. We're back for another edition of what we call the news of the day. And we're back once again with our good friend Andrew Donaldson, who joins us from somewhere in the southeast-ish. Andrew, how are you?
Well, Andy on the Vandy. That's got some nice alliteration to it. I like. I did West Virginia radio a while back, and I hate. I was like, this is West Virginia, guys. We have trouble stringing words together, and especially like sounding. And I had to do an free plug here. I had to do an ad read for Tony the Taylor text line, and like I just had to practice it for about a month. But that wasn't as bad as the one before that. There's a road right down from the Charleston airport across the main interstate, and it's called Bigley Avenue. And Bigley Avenue has a Piggly Wiggly, and it is called the Biggly Piggly Wiggly. I have never in 10 years of doing media had to practice something in the mirror so much as saying Biggly Piggly Wiggly. it's like fourth grade speech therapy again, like trying to figure out how to say Biggly Pig. Dave Allen, I love you, brother. Appreciate you. I was guess it's his show, but their sponsor was the Biggly Piggly Wiggly. And I'm just in the mirror shade. I'm like Biggly Piggly Wiggly, trying to figure out because it was when my accent gets strong when I go home, it's like Wiggly Wiggly. So
The weird thing about Piggly Wiggly
yeah,
is that they're not just in Bigley and they're not just in the southeast, because there are a few of them in Wisconsin.
they've had a big comeback. They had about gone away, and then they came back. They bought out. I know in West Virginia they bought out like the Foodlands and some of those regional brands that had kind of went under, and they took in. We used to have IGAs everywhere. There's still IGAs, but kind of that next tier down, and then they spun them up and made them a little better. And one thing, the thing about Piggly Wiggly people don't understand is it's not their deli and hot food sections are freaking awesome. Like if you need to just quick cater something, like the food they produce, you know, I know the one in Hyco, West Virginia, between Hyco and Anstead, used to be the New River Foodland. Now it's New River Piggly Wiggly. You need to feed 20, 30 people in a hurry. Just let them old ladies hook it up, because they'll make you a mess of chicken tenders and, beans and whatever you want, mac and cheese, rice, whatever you want, and they'll just serve. So the secret sauce to Biggly Piggly Wiggly is that great Southern Appalachian, wherever you're at, food. So when you start thinking about upper Midwest, something like that would make sense because those people love deli food. So it's just, natural fit, I would think.
The I didn't realize this was going to be Dave and Andrew talking.
I'm sorry, I just hijacked the whole show talking about Piggly Wiggly.
This is good. This is good stuff because as you're talking about the hot food bar, I'm thinking of the chain by us called Mariano's.
Okay.
And so Mariano tried to do, I think he tried to do a hostile takeover of Dominic's, and it failed. And Dominic's ended up going out of business. But then Mariano built his own thing called Mariano's, and then ended up being the head of Roundy's, which was a chain in Wisconsin. And then somehow Roundy's and Mariano's merged with Kroger.
Okay.
And so it's kind of this mess. And I mean, these are low margin businesses, right?
Very tight
it's not
businesses.
a fun thing to be in. But the reason I mention it is the hot food bar actually used to be a destination at the Mariano.
Yeah.
You could say, we're gonna meet for lunch at the hot food bar. A couple of jobs out in the burbs. I've done that before, where it's like, let's just meet over at Mariano's, spend $15 and get a plate of something. But it's great if you don't know what everybody's in the mood for, and you want to.
Yeah. Everybody get their meat and three down south. It's the meat and threes at the hot bar. I have a farmer's market right up the street, and they have a hot bar. So like tomorrow will be fish, fried fish Fridays, because it's just kind of traditional. So they'll do fried fish on Fridays. Tuesdays is usually shrimp. That sort of. I love that stuff. You can always go to a hot bar, and or as we always joked, it was like, the hot bar at the grocery store is like one level up from the church casserole dinner. It's like that's just the commercialized version of that. So it all good, and which is funny because a lot of times when we did church functions, we just ordered it from New River Foodland or Piggly Wiggly later on. So the church, you just order that, have them drop it off, and be done. So that stuff's all good stuff, and I love regional food like that. Like if I go down south and there's a meat and three place, I'm all in. If you've never been down in the south and never been to a meat and three place or a soul food place that does meat and threes, you need to go. This is going to be a good thing for your life and development as a human being. Make sure you go.
What do you mean by meat and?
So meat and threes, a lot of the old style cafeteria or buffet places down in the south, you instead of buying a meal, you just buy a meat and three. So you get one main meat, and then you get three sides, and then you'll get a piece of bread or whatever. So you get toast or a roll or whatever situation is. So they'll have two or three meat selections, and then they got 8 or 9 sides on the bar. So you get one meat and three sides, and that's your meal for a flat rate. Inflation's bad now, but it used to be, when I was young, you could get, $5-7, you get a meat and three. Now it's probably $10-12, whatever it is. But if you ever get down there, and there's not a lot of them left, although they've kind of made a little bit of a comeback because there's places like, you get into the places that are growing, like a Nashville, like a Birmingham, around Atlanta, the coastal low countries. People are coming in culinarily and doing that, and they're upscaling it a little bit, like not making it fancy, but just better quality food and keeping that tradition alive. But if you ever find an old school meat and three place down south, they are exceptionally good food. It's good stuff. I mean, look, it's not Michelin. It's a hot bar, but like you're just gonna eat good and you're gonna feel good after you do it. And you're gonna have a piece of catfish or fried chicken's kind of the big one. Sundays they'll usually do a prime rib or some kind of a sliced meat off the. They'll have a carving station. A lot of catfish, a lot of trout. If you're up my way, they do trout and catfish because you get these big channel cats out of the freshwater lakes. They're just, they're clean. They're not like catfish. You think of catfish. These are really clean meats. I love it. But I can talk food all day because I love this stuff. There's a reason why I went back to culinary school. So
That's right. And you go back in the fall, so you're on a bit of a break now.
I'm doing classes now, but my summer is just the online classes. My actual lab classes, I go back. In fact, I'm going to miss the first 3 days of class because I got to take my kid to her college because it all starts the same week. So I got to go to Brooklyn. I got to take her to Brooklyn, then turn around and do night classes the first week, and then switch back to day class to make up. So it's going to be an adventure, but yeah, I'll go back. I got 240 this fall, which is the main. That's your higher level cooking class. You actually do, I think, 6 or 7 services with a dining room full of people. So I'm doing that, and then I did the because I thought it would be fun. I did the food truck track. So I've got 3 classes of food truck, and we have a food truck. We got one. They're trying to get another one. We got a food truck, and we actually take it out. They'll go to Friday night football game, local high school football game. They'll go to the events at the school, but you actually take the food truck out and serve off it, and because that's a whole different beast. There's 2 parts to it. So there's the lab part, actually cooking on the truck, which is actually prepping and then going to the truck because you actually don't cook that much on the truck. It's all in your prep. And then the business side of it, because a lot of culinary school, you learn all the business side of it and the supply side. And I'm a transportation and logistics guy, so I already kind of think of that way. But you don't understand the logistics to get the food into the restaurant before you even go to prepare it. It's a whole different thing with the food truck because you ain't got no storage. So now what do you do? So that changes your business metrics a lot because you can't just buy a bunch of dry goods and store them forever, which is how a restaurant saves money. Can't do that on food truck. You ain't got nowhere to put it. So now, how do you change that bit? It's fascinating stuff to me. I love it. I love food trucks too. I'm a big food truck fan. But you got a good food truck, I'll chase you around. I went to the pharmacy just a little while ago. My favorite food truck is right across the street. And I'm like, darn, I wish I wasn't cooking dinner tonight to go there because it's called Phil Am. It's Filipino American food, and they have lumpia. And lumpia is just one of my absolute favorite things on God's earth, which is the Filipino version of a spring roll. They're so good. But I really want to go over there and just get 8 of them. I'm like, nah, I already prepped dinner. Don't do it. And I talk myself out of it. But
Now, have you been
and
to
that's
a
Food
Jolly?
Talk with Andy for the Vandy program. See
Yeah,
how I
there
do
you go.
that?
Have you been to a Jolly Bee?
A what?
Jolly Bee.
No, we have
JOL.
Jolly Pirate Donuts in Huntington, but not
Yeah,
Jolly
this
Bee.
is quite a bit different because Jolly Bee. There's one near me in one of the Chicago burbs. There are a couple of these in Chicago burbs. It is a Filipino
Oh, I'm in.
fried chicken chain.
I love
And
Filipino food.
one of the dishes that they serve is some combination of spaghetti and hot dogs.
Yeah, that
That
sounds about right.
that apparently is very popular in the Filipino culture.
Man, I got in Garmonje this past semester. I got assigned a Filipino dish which I'd never heard of, and I can't pronounce it, and I can't remember the name of it anyway now. But it was best way I can explain it is it's like the old school canned Chef Boyardee style spaghetti sauce, but it has fish cakes and rice flakes in it. So it sounds bizarre, but it's that kind of a spaghetti sauce. It tastes exactly like Chef Boyardee, but it's really really spicy, very spicy. And you soak the fish cakes and all that in that sauce. And we had to make that. And I'm like, boy, I'm off the page on this one because I had to Google a video of it to just figure out what in the world this thing was. But that's part of the reason. That's what's so fun about culinary classes. You learn how to do stuff that didn't even exist. However, I did know the one thing in Filipino cuisine. If you ever get offered balut, ladies and gentlemen, unless you're actually in the Philippines where you can't turn it down because it'd be insulting, don't do it. Don't do balut. If you don't know what balut is, make sure your filter is on your web browser before you YouTube it, because some of you may not like how that goes. But yes, I have had balut twice, and I got it down both times, but it was rough going. So.
And I'm just going to rely on the AI transcription thing to tell us what that is.
Do you know what balut is?
Yeah, because I'm not even.
So it is an egg, but it's fully developed, but not alive. So when you eat this egg, mostly raw, you're getting beak, feet, the whole thing. It's all developed in there, and then they cook it down, but it's in there. It's considered a delicacy, and I got it down, but it was not. It's up there on the things that I'm good if I never have to eat that ever again.
Okay.
So, yeah. You don't get those at Piggly Wiggly.
No, you don't.
No, they don't serve those at Piggly Wiggly.
I don't think Jollibee had that on the menu too.
I doubt they did.
Yeah. I'll have to hit Jollibee maybe this weekend just because I drive by it a lot.
Hashtag it, brother. Twitter Supper Club. Make sure you stick it on there. So
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I just did waffle. You texted me a little while ago. I was actually sitting at the Waffle House with my daughter that's getting ready to leave here in the middle of July. She just got her placement for school, so she's getting ready to leave too. So I was eating at the Waffle House. I'm like, yeah, I'll take Waffle House over balut all day, twice on Sunday. No problems there. Got my scattered smothered covered. Had my blood of the Patriots sauce, ketchup all over the top of it. Had my little yellow square of freedom, the piece of cheese. I love it. Good stuff.
And over your shoulder is a painting called Starry Waffles.
Yeah, Matt Dawson, go look him up. Great guy, good friend of ours on Twitter. He's an artist who came. That was kind of his breakthrough moment. He does other art too, but he's a very talented guy. But go look him up, Matt Dawson Art on NC, and I've got it on my social media. You can look it up. But funny enough, I hadn't ordered mine yet, and somebody sent me that one. That one's actually a gift. So I ordered mine, and I gifted mine to AEI, the American Enterprise Institute, because I had just been at a conference there. So one of those is hanging at AEI in Washington, and that's the other one because somebody gifted me one when I'd already ordered it, so I rerouted it. So
it's outstanding. Yeah, Matt is a sweetheart.
Matt's a great guy, really good dude.
He, I remember he actually got on TV.
He was on Fox. He got on Fox for that. It blew up. But it was so funny because I do media hits and it's right there. It used to be over here and I moved it over here. So when I'm doing, because when I do network, I got to, you know how these things go. I have to change the lighting a little bit. This is just straight on so I can relax. But if I'm doing a formal stand-up, that's basically the biggest thing you see behind me, and I did it on purpose. You'd be amazed. I've had anchors on air during the interviews like, okay, tell me, Jim Loki, the first time I put it up, Fox 5 in D.C., which is one of the biggest regional D.C., it's probably the next thing to a network, they're way up there. He's like, okay, just tell me about the painting. So we spent half the segment talking about the Starry Waffle painting. So it's really cool, and I love it. And support Matt's work. He will get it to you in a prompt manner. I think it took me like 4 or 5 days. He shipped them right to me, but he's got a lot of really good artwork. His cityscapes are really good. He did another Waffle House with the Salvador Dali where the waffles are dripping off like the clocks. That one's pretty good too. That one's good too. That one's good too.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, he's a tremendous artist. Really good. Good follow on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah.
Saint RTHP something. But type in Matt Dawson, it'll come right
Yeah,
up.
his Twitter's, he fashioned himself as Twitter's pharmacist. So,
Drug
pharmacist-
dealing artist is how we like to
Exactly.
refer to it. But yeah, Matt's great, man, and it's just so awesome, and people talk about it, and it was fun. I gotta tell you this real quick, and I'll get off this. I actually took my kids to the immersive Van Gogh thing. You know, like where they put it, it's like in a warehouse, and you walk through the paintings, and they use the lasers and the lights, and so you're in Starry Waffles. You're walking through it, and then they have the big room where you sit in the lounge chairs, and the sunflowers is going by and all this. So I was actually at the immersion, and I was talking to one of the people that ran it, that kind of set it up because they were just walking around. I pulled my phone out and showed him. I was like, "Do you realize in the southern part of America, if you could figure out how to do an immersive Starry Waffles, and did it with get a partnership with Waffle House and set it up so the Waffle House was functioning in this warehouse space with the Van Gogh going?" I was like, you could just print money, man." And he goes, "This is the crossover America needs." Now I doubt they ever get to do it, but how cool would that be? So
Crossover America needs.
that's the
That is a
crossover
great
America.
segue, actually. That's a great
There you go.
segue to topic.
Hey,
I
I'm
guess
a
it's-
media professional for a reason.
Topics 1 and 3 on the list are
Hey.
related. So
And I don't have the list this time, so
You
that
don't
was
have-
just
you don't have
talent,
the list?
folks.
yeah,
Talent.
because I wrote down item 1: Democratic Socialists and Mamdani, the kingmaker. And you were telling me before we started that you got a few calls and texts from
Yeah.
operatives in various camps that are telling you this is really going to change the makeup of the midterms.
Well,
But one of the things I did see you say on Twitter is that we may be overestimating the amount of support that these three candidates are going to end up bringing to the rest of the party
right.
in November. So talk
Yep.
to me about that.
So let's just use. So the headline that got me wound up this morning was they're like Squad 2.0 because the squad, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, let me run with your here. I'm a premise guy. I was like, okay, that's your premise. Let's run with your premise for a second. Squad 2.0 means you're comparing it to Squad 1.0. So let's look at what Squad 1.0. What has Squad 1.0 actually meant to American politics in the last 5-6 years since they came on the screen?
And that, to me, that
8 years now.
that
So
might mostly be an Overton window opening.
not much. Like two of them are not even in elected office anymore. The ones that are, with the exception of AOC, are kind of relegated, and I say that respectfully. They're relegated to their lane of being, much like on the right, much like a Rand Paul or Macy before he got voted out. They're just kind of known as the people that are going to say those certain things and do those certain things and be that problem when votes come up. That's their lane. The exception, of course, is AOC. And the reason AOC is different is because she has learned to play the game and moderated from a lot of the squad stuff. She knows it's not that she doesn't believe it. She just knows how to talk around it now. The bigger difference between Squad 1.0 and this is, and I do think this is where people have a legitimate thing of, is this going to be a problem? The reason AOC moderated to a large extent and the squad wasn't a problem per se to the Democratic Party at the time. And remember, Joe Biden won, a couple of years after that, so that kind of mitigated some of it too, because, friendly fire and so forth. Nancy Pelosi was so established running the Democratic Party in the House at the time. She was on her, I think, 4th term of leadership at that point, both as a speaker and as minority leader and then speaker again. She was so well established that, remember, there was her and AOC are going to fight, and there was no fight. She sat her down and said, look, if you want to be here and have power, this is how it works. AOC, being a very smart young lady, said, I'm going to moderate and play the game and actually matter, not just be the person on the... And she has. She's done very well, playing the political game, whatever you think of her views. The problem is Hakeem Jeffries is not Nancy Pelosi. He's not even been speaker one time yet. So they're going to be coming into a caucus. Let's just play this out a little bit. Let's assume the Democrats get the House of Representatives. The margin that they get the House matters a lot. Ask Mike Johnson how much the margin in a House matters. If you've only got a 10 or 12 or 15 seat majority, those 3 or 4 DSA people on top of the squad, now they matter a lot. Look at what the House Freedom Caucus, every time the Republicans do anything, they get some kind of weird concession because they got to have them, right? They always hold up the vote and you got to give them something. That's what they can do every single vote. If you get a landslide where it's 20 or 30 seats and you get a whole lot of moderates from the rest of the country, now they don't matter as much. So you see how I'm laying this out? Hakeem Jeffries has done about as good a job as I think he probably could of keeping his caucus relatively together, keeping it relatively moderate and not just being all Trump all the time and all the craziness. But we know the progressive wing of the Democratic Party always thinks the next election is the one where they're going to really show out. And they really think this one's going to. And if they think they have a chance to really exert power, and if that margin, ironically, if you do, the way you get the bigger margin is to run more moderately. The more they run, heavy progressive, the smaller that margin is going to be. So it's kind of, perversely inverse. They think they're going to get power, and Jeffries doesn't have the experience and he doesn't have the cachet of Nancy Pelosi where he can just tell people to sit down, shut up, and collar. He doesn't have that ability yet. So that's the biggest difference I see. Now, are they going to take over the whole country? No, they're not. Does this work in places like New York under a very specific set of circumstances with a very specific set of candidates? Yes, and then it'll work in places like Minnesota, in certain places it'll work in California, in certain places, the Bay Area, Austin, Texas. You can guess where these folks will have electoral success, right? Is it scalable? No, it's not scalable. Is a whole lot of people on the left going to say it's scalable and get a ton of money to go and prove that it's scalable, even though we already have recent history that it's not going to be scalable? Yes, they are. Is that a problem for the Democratic Party that could snatch a very big victory from into a very moderate or a disappointing victory, or maybe even a defeat in the midterms? Yes, it could if they really louse this up, because if they do well in the midterm and they think it's because of them, now they're going to want a progressive candidate for candidate in 2028, and a progressive is not going to win the presidency in 2028. That's not what they need to do. They need to build a moderate coalition of people that are tired of Trump and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is what Joe Biden ran on. But then because of his, let's be kind and say, his declining faculties, his staff decided they were going to be FDR 2.2 and went running headlong progressive wise. And what happened? It fell, wheels fell off quick. Barack Obama showed the pattern. If you want to be a progressive, you talk big picture aspirational stuff, you build a moderate electoral coalition, and then once you're in power, you start pushing the edges and start pushing progressive policies, which is what he did. That's the formula. But the DSA, especially, in the Democratic Party widely, but the DSA especially, they want to skip those 3 very, very effective steps that have shown they will work, and they want to skip step 4 and 5 on top of it, and they want to skip to step 6, which is we're the dominant power in the world and we just do whatever we want with no repercussions. And that's never going to work. And that's why they always seem to flame out. They'll have this big thing, and then in a year or two, it'll flame back out again because they don't want to take the steps and play the game. AOC's playing the game. That's why she's endured. We'll see if any of these people can do the same thing. Mamdani's smart enough to not say stuff out loud. These 3 people, I don't know that they have the acumen that he does, because that guy's got charisma. He knows how to talk around it. These 3 folks, I think they're going to go the way that the first squad went, and pretty rapidly, probably.
What's interesting to me is because of the 3 that won their primaries and the fact that Mamdani is being seen as a kingmaker, then you attach AOC to the mix and people start talking about, does this do something for AOC's chances in 2028? Which brings me to point 3 on the list. A buddy of mine, John Ziegler, out in California, who follows all of this political stuff, and from California, he's got a lot of California-specific insights. His thought was that AOC now becoming a player and now possibly thinking that she's a candidate in 2028 on a national stage might get might open the door for, because Kamala would be seen as the establishment and they want new blood, the moderate safe choice in 2028 might be Gavin Newsom. Your thoughts on that?
Newsom's got the same problem Kamala Harris had in a lot of ways, where he's a California Democrat, which means you're a system quarterback, which means as soon as you have to do any kind of pushback that's not inside that system, you get exposed really, really quickly. I think Gavin Newsom, if we were going to do this in a sports analogy, I think he's greatly overvalued on the national stage because I think he's going to get exposed really quick. He's got a. It's not that he's not smooth. It's just he's never had to do the battles where you had to actually interact with anybody other than your base to win an election. And he's tried. Now, he's tried. He went on Hannity a couple of years ago. They made the big thing. He's done listening tours or whatever you want to call them. It's not that he's not trying. So his actions tell you he knows where the weakness in his game is, right? But the other problem is, by California standards, he wasn't that progressive. So the other part of these DSA people succeeding is these DSA people are well to the left and more progressive than Gavin Newsom is on a lot of stuff. And I know a lot of the right wing people are going to be like, no, yeah, they are. Like he's not as far to the left as you probably think he is on a lot of stuff. He's certainly not like an uber progressive on the left. He's a very traditional California Jerry Brown, if you're old enough to remember that. So like he's Jerry Brown with better hair and better cheekbones. Like that's the kind
But
of politician he is.
but that is my friend John's theory is that opens up the fact that he can reposition. He's very, I think John called him a shapeshifter. Very
Yeah.
much go with the flow. He can now be perceived as the moderate choice. So he's
Yeah.
the moderate choice. He can say exactly that. Well, I'm not as progressive as everybody else, and also I think to his credit, he has not lost a national presidential election yet.
Well, by that standard, neither have we.
Correct, but Kamala has, and I guess that's the thing: is if you've got to have somebody
Yeah,
from
and
California.
look, Kamala Harris is the polling leader right now because of name recognition. I don't know if she'll actually run or not. If she does, she will be hard to beat because she's going to have some things, but I just don't know that you can run that back. And people are going to point to Biden and be like, well, Biden, came back and like, yeah, I understand that, but this is very different. The covering up for the Biden decline, she's going to have to own that. By the way, JD Vance is getting ready to have this exact same problem, and so will Rubio to a lesser extent, but especially Vance when they try to run, because as President Trump declines, they're going to find themselves in the same position. But yeah, I don't know about Harris. Their bench is so weird because to get to your Newsom point, the people who would probably do best nationally in a general election, I don't know if they can get through the primary to do it. So, just look at the cast of characters. We know Harris is going to have baggage because she just lost to Trump, which is a pretty big black mark because Biden beat Trump and you lost to Trump. Like that's just going to be hard to get for people to get around. And I know a lot of it wasn't her fault in the situation. I get it. You've got that going on. You got Pete Buttigieg, but he can't pull the demographics that you need to get a he's dead in the water in a place like South Carolina. He's trying, but it's not working. And then you've got the people who could probably really do well in a general election, like an Ossoff. But is he going to be? He can do all the inspirational stuff that you need in a general election, using that Obama example, because he's been doing the Georgia wars and flipped a Georgia seat, so he can do that stuff. He's good at it. But could he get through a primary if you put him against, some kind of real hardcore progressive that's going to rip him apart? Those are the questions that we don't know. Now, Newsom, and remember, all these people we're talking about who polls it, like we're talking 15%, 18%, 21%, because it's all a pie in the sky thing right now. But Newsom, there's just this vibe with him. The other problem Newsom's got nationally, and I've heard some people in the party talk about this, he's not really a new fresh face. He's been around a he's been on the stage a long, long time. So if they really want to turn the page and try to get some fresh blood in there, which is going to be hard to do with Harris and Newsom and all these other cast of characters going on, Newsom's not really new. He. It feels like he's been hinting at running at president for 10 years because he's been hinting at running for president for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. That was the original thought, I think, was that there was some sort of power deal brokered way that when, and it was Gavin would be the governor and Kamala would be the senator, and then Kamala would kind of slide her way into.
I found it very interesting she didn't run for governor. Because remember, a lot of people thought she might. She probably would have won. I think that was almost, a lot of people took that as an automatic. She's running for president, just the fact that she passed on it. Because she would have won. Look at what a mess that governor's race is. Like it's a virtual who's that. All due respect to everybody involved. So when she passed on the governor's race, I think a lot of people just automatically went, okay, she's automatically going to run for president. And odds on she probably will run. Just, business decision, career decision. Why not? I just don't know if you can run that back because now you're going to have to, instead of focusing on Trump, which is what the Democrats' best argument's going to be, is focusing on Trump, you're going to have to relitigate all the Biden stuff again. And there's just no win in relitigating that. And it's going to be and remember, at this point, Trump's a lame duck. You've probably flipped the House at least, maybe the Senate by then. You're going to be like, wait a minute, we got all this momentum. Why do we want to go backwards? Remember, I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about how this looks 18 months from now, right? Why do we want to go backwards? We just took the House. We're one seat away in the Senate or 2 seats up on the Senate or whatever the case. I'm just projecting. Like, why do we want to go back and relitigate that when that's what lost and got us Trump in the first place? Let's do something. I just think she's going to have a really hard time winning that nomination. And then it's just a matter of who gets in and who can put, again, we need to go back to basics because everybody starts doing a fantasy draft of, this person. You become a president by building an electoral coalition. That's why I never for 1 minute have ever bought Nikki Haley as a national. She doesn't have a coalition. What's the coalition? Same thing with Pete Buttigieg. We just talked about on Democrats' side. What's his coalition? People that really like people who speak media is not a voting coalition. That's why he got popular, because he speaks media. Everybody understands what I mean by I say he speaks media, right? He's a great media guest. He's perfect. He's great on TV. So he's shot to fame on that, but he was more popular on TV and online than he was with the actual voters. That's not his constituency. Who can build a constituency? Joe Biden built a constituency by getting, a bunch of Trump voters just stayed home. Let's call it what it was. They just stayed home and stayed out of it because they were fed up or mad or whatever. He got enough moderates to cross over and vote for him. He won a big chunk of the independents, and he coalesced all the Democrats. That was his voting coalition. Trump won because, not the inverse of it, but a whole bunch of Democrats were fed up and didn't match the enthusiasm, whether they stayed home or just left the top of the tick. Maybe a lot of people did what I did, where I felt I had 28 things on my ballot and the top one stayed blank because I'm like, I didn't even bother writing anybody's name in. I'm like, this is just, neither of these people should be president. I can't do this. Full disclosure, that's how I voted last time. So what's your coalition? Can Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris build a coalition based on almost very high name recognition? It's not like they're going to fool anybody. They're not going to get a big bump from anybody because everybody knows everything about them. Or is there another candidate who's not as well known nationally, shows up? And how many times we've seen this front runner? They show up those first couple events or the first election or whatever's going on, and it's all of a sudden like, bright new shiny thing that's really good. We're going to go with that, and all of a sudden they just get swept aside. I can see that happening really easily with both Harris and Gavin Newsom because that's a very well run political story, especially for two people that have been very much in the spotlight and haven't had a lot of national success to go with it.
So let's then segue to other political news, but in Great Britain, because you followed it closely, I follow it closely thanks to my Sky News addiction, and there's a there's obviously a difference in the parliamentary system between the parliamentary system they have and our electoral system over here. But it looks like a guy named Andy Burnham is going to become the next prime minister of the UK. And this happened really quickly in that they had a by-election, so a vacant seat was opened up entirely to allow Mr. Burnham to run for Parliament. He won rather easily, and that
big
was
win.
announced. Yeah, that was announced like Friday or so.
Yeah.
Friday or Saturday, and then by the end of the weekend, you had President Trump tweeting, or truthing, I guess it were, that Keir Starmer was going to resign, and he then on Monday morning, Sir Keir Starmer then announced his intention to resign. So what do you make of all this?
Yeah, so let's go through the course of events for people that don't pay attention and aren't one of them, Wednesday morning parliamentary question addicts like I am. And I'm with you. I watch way too much Sky News and Guardian and all that stuff because I actually enjoy doing UK media and that sort of thing. And I got good friends over there I talk to all the time. One of the best text messages I've gotten in a long time was when Starmer resigned and Burnham came on and it just said, "This country is effed." That was the entire message. And that's not from a conservative either, folks. That was from a labor person. Actually, I had a very good friend that's conservative say almost the same thing verbatim. So for what that's worth, nobody's happy here. Keir Starmer, he's been a lame duck walking. Remember, he's only been prime minister for 2 years. Until recently, prime ministers almost always got a second election before they really got hammered on things. Brexit changed that, so now he is the sixth prime minister to resign since Brexit, which was roughly 10 years ago. Burnham is going to be the seventh, and we already know who the eighth's going to be. Because at some point, whenever they have a general election, Reform's probably going to win that general election, and then we're going to have to deal with the Reform candidate, who's probably going to be Nigel Farage, but Reform would do well to get him out of the way and put somebody else up, but that's another matter for another day. But anyway, so we already know who eight's going to be somebody from Reform, seven's Burnham. Here's why this sounds weird to people that don't understand. The British Prime Minister is a member of Parliament who is the leader of the party in power. So in our system, you have the Republicans and the Democrats. If the Democrats had the majority, whoever's in charge of the Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries in the House at this point, because they don't have the House of Lords is analogous to the Senate, Hakeem Jeffries would become the prime minister because his party's in power. Everybody with me so far? So the problem they had, and one of the reasons they couldn't just get rid of Keir Starmer, is they literally had nobody to replace him with. Nobody wanted that job. Starmer had been in charge of the party for a very long time. He had remember the Tories had been in power for like 14 years straight, which was almost unheard of. Labor had been in the wilderness for a long time. So when they came in 2 years ago, they actually had maybe not historic, but at least in modern times, one of the largest majorities Labor's had in modern era, right, post World War II. And it all fell apart almost immediately. It's really shocking when you go back, because remember, Starmer is, with all due respect, he's the anti-Boris Johnson. He's boring. He was a prosecutor. He's very mild-mannered. He's very British. He's not flashy. He was put in the spot to be like, we're going to restore order from the chaos, and it's been nothing but chaos since he came in. Now, not all of it has been his fault. Some of it's out of his control. We'll talk about this in just a second, because I think what's happening in the UK is more structural than political right now. We'll touch on that in a minute. But anyway, they had nobody to replace him with. They knew these by-elections were coming up, and they knew the by-elections were going to be a bloodbath. So part of the theory was you don't want to put the new guy in there to immediately get a historic L hung on him in the by-elections, which makes sense. Like our midterms, like if you knew the midterms were going to go bad, you wouldn't have your leader resign, put the new guy in, and then let him take the L. You'd wait till let him take the L and then put the new guy in. The problem was Burnham was the only one they had, and he's been the mayor of Greater Manchester for the last 10 years or so. Now, he's been member of Parliament before. It's not like he's, they didn't jerk him off the street. The reason that's a big deal is because when the Tories flipped a lot of the North and the Midlands, like Manchester, the places where Burnham has had electoral success is the places that Labor lost. So a lot like Trump flipped the Rust Belt from the Democrats, he got all the old blue dogs. Very similar situation. Labor lost those voters to the Tories over the last 12, 14, 15 years. Now those voters are leaving the Tories and going to Reform. But Andy Burnham in places like Manchester and in his constituency that he just got elected to, in what you called it a by-election, is actually separate from the by-election. It'd be like a special election for us where they appoint two people and they run real quick, although they did it a lot faster than that. That district is one of those old white working class, the kind of people they have that the Labor Party has struggled to retain over the last few years. So the theory is, and this is where you get all the King of the North nonsense, and Sky News is just slathering all over Burnham, and it's kind of embarrassing coverage. I love you, Sky News. I really like you. I will appear on you anytime you want to, but calm down. Like they are just overly excited about Burnham. Part of it is because Starmer's so boring. He's bad for ratings. Let's just call it what it is. Burnham's at least got a personality, but that's the theory, is that maybe he can help stem the tide with Labor. But the problem is that by-election was so bad. They lost 1,000 council seats, local elections. Like, it was just a wipeout. They just got destroyed. Now, the only thing saving them is, and I've had our UK friends on my program, and I've talked to them on and offline both. Reform might have peaked too early. So even though Reform has been kind of steamrolling everything, they're only at like 27% in a three-way race. With all due respect to the Greens and the SNP and everybody else, it's basically a three-way race. They're only at 27%, so it's not like they're winning the world. And when they do get in power, and I've said this for a while, the way that they're promising to govern is not going to work. They're going to have a failure on par with what Keir Starmer just did immediately, and it's not just because Nigel Farage is incorrigibly corrupt and borderline incompetent, but he's a big personality, so a lot of people in the West like him. It's not just that. Just the way they want to govern is not going to work with the structural problems that England has. And I think, and this is a little long-winded, but to get it to why America should care about this, what you're seeing with them cycling through all these PMs all of a sudden is something that's happening here in America too, is you have some structural issues in England that a political promise and a parliamentary system cannot fix the structural problems because politically they're not allowed to fix them. You can't fix NHS. They're really having problems with demographics, but you're having a fight over immigration and migration, but you're having a demographic problem. That's unsolvable unless you put those two things together. That affects your economy. I was on a Talking Head show recording for syndication this morning. When we called them to help us in the Middle East this time with Iran, it wasn't like they wanted to. They literally couldn't do it. The Royal Navy could not deploy to help us. They had no ability to do so. Now, they had some assets in Bahrain and other places already in place. They tried to deploy one ship to the Med. It took them 4 days to get it going, and then they had to turn it around and put it in for maintenance, then try again. Like the Royal Navy could not support us. That's how bad the military is, and they just had two of their main military leaders resign here about 3 weeks ago, which was part of the death nail of the Starmer decline. Britain's got some real problems. NHS is just, screwing their budget to the wall. They're having a brain drain problem. They're having a demographic problem. They've got structural issues. So why does that apply to America? We keep wanting to do the culture war stuff, and we want to keep doing the Team Red and Team Blue, and we've got all this debt that nobody wants to deal with. Social Security is now 10 years from being really screwed up, where it's going to hit the hard wall of law where the taxes just go up whether you do anything or not. So, like it or not, the people that are elected to Senate this term are going to have to deal with that now. We can't push it any further. And then you got all the, political stuff of just people not liking each other. We have structural problems that the normal political promises won't fix. So we should look at England and go, okay, just saying the words and we're going to tweak taxes 1% or fix immigration. These structural problems require really hard decisions, and you have to be a serious people that want to make serious changes to things like NHS, like things like their immigration system, things like the economic situation, things like their place in the world. What do they do with Brexit now? How do they get back into the EU economy, either through Brexit or through a trade deal, one way or the other? And then we need to look at ourselves and go, we got to do something about our debt. We got to do something about our spending, and we got to do something about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. we've got to do something about it, or it's going to change the way of life of everybody in this country. And you're watching what happens when you kick it down the road over there, and we should learn a lesson. But I don't think we're going to, unfortunately.
It's all very fascinating because the reality of, for instance, the NHS, the National Health Service, is not in good shape for a variety of reasons, and it also is as it says, free healthcare. It's National Health Service, and if you look at that, and does that portend the move in the U.S. to some are going to ask for single payer because of the mess of the system that we currently have. The reality is, I think that would completely cripple us. But yeah, these are really, really interesting questions.
Well, we have a single payer system we can just look at to how well that works. You know how I know that? Because I'm a member of it. It's called the VA. The largest integrated healthcare system in America is Veterans Affairs. Let me say that again. The largest integrated healthcare system in America is Veteran Affairs. If you don't count the post office, it's the third biggest department of the United States government. Third biggest, and it's bigger than the next three put together. All of that to take care of 9 million patients. There's 330 million Americans. Now just stop and think about that for a second. Think about the math of that. Okay, if you had to scale that single payer system up, and that's with the restrictions of you have to be 30% disabled to not pay anything, like that cuts it way down. And that, by the way, that's only half. There's 15 million veterans. There's only 9 million in the VA healthcare system because you can have benefits and not be in the healthcare system for a variety of reasons. So now scale, 900 million up to 330 million. It's the third largest department of government and the largest integrated healthcare system in the country just to take care of those 9 million people, including me. That's the beast you're dealing with. England's got 40 odd million, 42, 44 million people, and NHS is strangling their country because you can't get rid of it. You can only feed into it, and it's never going to work right no matter what you do. And it's almost, we joke about NHS being the national religion now in England. That's the joke. But it's pretty close true because you can't even criticize it politically in a lot of cases. But the math is math, and math don't lie. And when you have demographic problems and economic problems, and you're doing this cradle to the grave stuff, it ain't going to work. And that's why your defense is stripped down to literally nothing, and you can't deploy ships correctly. And that's why you're having problems. And America, we have such a good economy, we can't screw it up even when we're trying really hard to screw it up. Like we're trying really hard to screw our economy up right now, and it's still pretty good. But at some point, it's going to catch up with us if we don't reel it in and get serious about some of this stuff. So, yeah, we have single payer in America, and it has good points and bad points. And I don't think people really understand what it would look like if you did that for the whole country.
Just an order of magnitude or more larger, 20 times.
And that's not saying the system we got is great. It's not. The original sin of healthcare in America was the post-World War II move to tie healthcare with employment, which made sense at the time because you've got this massive workforce where everybody's competing to get the guys coming back, so they get all these bonuses like lifetime pensions and healthcare and all that. It's just an antiquated model for another age. But now, because people have grown up with, it is my right to have health care, right? And we've untethered healthcare from all reality. Again, I'm a VA patient. I know the good and the bad of it. Trust me. I was off my meds for 6.5 weeks this summer because somebody keystroked something wrong. They literally deleted my specially approved med out of the entire, out of the entire VA system, and it turned out it was just somebody made a computer error. It took me 6.5 weeks to get my medicine again. Don't come at me. I understand the good and the bad of all this stuff. There's trade-offs. I'm just telling you, we have to be serious about it, but we don't want to have those hard conversations. So now we didn't want to do this with people's pensions. Now nobody's getting a pension. right? How's all those old union guys doing? My parents are on PEIA, public employee insurance. It's getting to be an untenable situation for them. My dad jokes about it. He goes, "Well, I think we're going to be okay because he's pushing 80. He's like, I'm going to die before it completely falls apart, but everybody 5 years younger than me is probably screwed." That's his joke about it. Like, and he ain't wrong because they don't. How do you fix it? You have to draw a line somewhere in America and go, okay, everybody under 37 isn't getting Social Security anymore, and who's going to have the guts to do that? Or who's going to have the guts to go, if you make more than $180,000 a year, pick your number. I don't want to have a policy argument. If you make more than $180,000 a year revenue of any kind, you don't get a Social Security check. Which is common sense mathematically, but people are like, that's my money you get. So you got millionaires drawing full Social Security. Like, who's going to have the courage to stand up and do something about that? And then who's going to have the leadership ability to get laws passed to actually fix any of that? I don't think anybody does, and it's just going to go until it collapses, and then we're going to have a mess on our hands. But math is math. It's not even a political thing. It's like we just don't have enough people to pay for this. And England's 44 million. We're 330, so we're much more wealthy. So we're going to remember England's per capita GDP is the same as Mississippi, which is the 50th state in per capita GDP. The entire UK is poorer than the poorest state in America per capita.
And they
Now,
love
they have
to
more
bring
resources,
that up.
but yeah, but they're poorer per person.
Yeah.
And so just think, like, we're going to get away with it for a while because our economy's so good. They've only got 44 million people, and their place in the world has changed. They can't get away with it anymore. We need to watch them and pay attention to our cousins and go, we don't want to do what they're doing right now. We need to act now, not yesterday, not 3 days from now, not 2 cycles from now. We need to fix this now so that we don't have to do the pain that they're getting ready to go through.
What is their pain going to look like? Because to me, it seems like, just again, semi-casual observer of UK politics. This is what I see happening. First of all, Burnham is to the left of where Sir Keir Starmer is. So
yes, that's fair.
So Labour is going to,
although he's moderating in language, but to his core, he is to the left. Like, he's smart enough now. He's like, well, we need to put caps on immigrate. Like, he's going to lip service it, but yes, he's more progressive.
So what are they likely to actually get accomplished between now and
That's
whenever
the
the
thing.
next
What's he
election?
going to do? Raise taxes? Like, he can't remodel. Like, this is why I've been joking about, we already know who the eighth is, and the eighth's going to fail too. So Starmer was the sixth. Burnham's going to be the seventh whenever they get around to doing. They have their. Sorry, I should have led with this. They have their party meetings, I think, the third week of July. I think it's like the 17th. I think the vote's on the 17th of July. So when they have their party meeting, kind of like we have a convention, that's when he'll officially become the leader of the party, and then he'll go to the king, and they'll do the whole ceremonial thing. So somewhere around July is when he'll actually become prime minister. It's just they got to go through the process.
As long as he does not face opposition for party leadership. If he faces
Yeah,
opposition,
the one guy that was going to stand, that had already talked about standing, they already did the handshake deal. He's going to step aside. Somebody will do something at the convention because it's British politics. But it's going to get tapped down pretty quick because they also understand that they've got a steep hill. See, by law, they have to have a general election no later than 2027. So that general election's coming. Now, what they do in there, they can call it whenever they want to. So they will try to get some kind of a bump and then call an election to try to mitigate the damage, or pick a spot where they think they might win, where maybe the Tories and the Reform, eat enough of each other's votes that they survive or mitigate the damage. So they've got an election coming really quick. So they want this put to bed fast. They don't want any dissension because they've already got it's going to be bad enough as it is. So they want to tourniquet this thing. But to your wider point of what you're getting at, structurally, there's just not much they can do. Like, they can't, if they try, economically, the only thing you can really do to a demographic crisis is up immigration, where they're already having riots in the streets where they're shooting people in Ireland right now over that. So I don't think that's going to work. You can only tax people so much. There's two things that are really dooming the UK. And I've got a couple people that you probably just need to have on here to talk about this that are excellent guests. I'll kick you their names because they can just blow, because we've got some really sharp young people coming out of the UK. The young people 30 and under that came out of university, and I'm talking what we'd call middle class and up, not just, poor. They can't get housing and they can't get jobs. So you're going to have a massive brain drain to the continent and to America and other places because you have an entire generation of their really high end people, the people that would go into lifetime government service, that would go into really high end jobs. There's almost no tech sector to speak of. Um, Energy prices are crushed. One of the biggest problems with the UK economy is they used to be able to get pretty cheap energy out of the North Sea because of environmental reasons and a little bit of incompetence, but also the world market changed a little bit. That's really strangled. Energy is extraordinarily expensive in the UK right now. Every winter it's a crisis now of how are we going to have enough energy to get through the winter. Like they're seasonally having trouble with energy. That's how bad it is right now. And then there's the UK, the EU has decided to squeeze them to punish them for Brexit, and you can have whatever feelings you have about that, but at some point that's got to get resolved. They got issues. So when you have one of these younger people that I'm going to pass your names to them, just listen to how brilliant they are, and the first two things out of their mouth are going to be like, "There's no jobs and there's no housing. What are we supposed to do?" And Canada's got the same problem. There's jobs, but there's no housing. You can't buy it.
Yeah.
HGTV had to start. They used to always shoot their shows in Toronto area. They had to start shooting them in Raleigh because everybody in American audience were going like, "How is that $1 million house? That's like a $200,000 house." So they moved all their shows, started shooting them in like Raleigh and Wilmington and places like that. So it would because the American audience is like, "That's like a $400,000 house. That's not 1.4 million." Like literally the housing crisis is that bad in Canada right now. It's horrifically bad. Now the jobs haven't caught up yet, but in the UK it's both. So all those under 30s that are your backbone to going into civil service, going into professional grades, going into the things that make your country go. If you can't move out from your parents' house and you can't get a job, why are you how long are you going to stay before you, oh well, I can go to the continent and get a job, or I can go to America and get a job, or I can go to Canada and get a job, or Australia. They got options because the Commonwealth system, they can go, wherever. They if the brain drain doesn't get fixed quickly and the energy part doesn't get, you're getting ready to see a generational drop off in the UK, I'm afraid to say. And I will get you a couple of those names you need to have, because you need to hear it from them and see it in their face, because it'd be like you leaving Chicago or me leaving West Virginia or the South or wherever. It'd be like, I don't want to leave. I don't have a choice. I can't get work. I can't get a house. I can't start a family. I got no future here. What do I do? You can't live in London on 3,000 pounds a month when you don't have a job. It's just, it's
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
And I've got friends that work in London and they got hour and 20, 30-minute commutes every day. And they're like, the train keeps getting more expensive. What am I going to do? That's rough, man.
Yeah.
Rough.
It is kind of scary to watch the demographic question unfold over there, and the cost of living, I know, seems to dominate all of the discussions about what a new administration needs to tackle. Let's come back to the U.S. because in the limited time we have left, I want to leave on as much of a positive note as I possibly can.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so two things. Have you caught World Cup fever?
I already had it. I've been let me back up for a second. So the first World Cup in America in 94, I was 14, 15 years old. 94, I'd been 14 when they actually did it. So that was kind of the first time I actually started paying attention to soccer, was that first World Cup. Alexi Lawless was playing, not being the subject of TV wrath. That's how old this is. Okay. But that was the beginning of it. Then something really weird happened. There was no, like, where every little town has soccer. There was nobody knew, especially in central southern West Virginia. Nobody had a clue what soccer was, right? I don't think you could buy a soccer ball at the store if you wanted to. Nobody had a clue what it was. The following, the year after that, so that was the summer of 94. 96, we got a bunch of, they did a special program and we got a bunch of exchange students. So we had two Germans, an Austrian, a French girl, and who was the other one? I think the other one was Eastern European of some kind. But anyway, the two Germans and the Austrians, guess what? They're basically semi-pro soccer players. And in fact, Paul, who was the Austrian, he played, I think, second level Bundesliga at one point in Austria. Like he was like he They're like, we will have a soccer team. I'm like, we don't even know how to play soccer. Like, find 9 other people. We got it. Like, okay, no problem. But we're playing like club teams, like male club team, because none of the schools have them. So
Yeah.
the summer of '96, we were one of the only schools that actually had a soccer team, and we sucked. We were terrible. I scored 1 goal by accident because literally 6 people dove after the Germans, and the ball just fell in front of me, and I kicked it, and I had no idea what I was doing because I sucked at soccer. But anyway, I got the ball still. So I got soccer a lot earlier than a lot of people. And then the other thing happened was I moved to Europe. So one of the first things happened when I moved to Germany was we're going to a Bundesliga game in Frankfurt, and this is the old Wald Stadium before they rebuilt it for the World Cup in 2020 2006. This is the old stadium, and you remember the old like iron built stadiums, man. You've been to some of the old SEC schools before they rebuilt them.
Yeah, of course.
You put 70,000 people in Frankfurt's Wald Stadium, and they're shooting flares at each other, and there's smoke and there's fire, and that thing's, I'm talking swaying like this, not just rumbling. It's the old stadium. It's moving with the people. I was just like, oh my God, this is what is it? American, they've been talking about the World Cup response has gotten very collegiate, like how we had. I think that's the right thing. Is the soccer culture in Europe is a lot like our college football culture, and so once you put the tailgating and that together, and people are discovering the game. And the other thing is, and I've always said this, soccer fits the modern world really well. This is the same reason the NFL does well. The NFL, you know exactly what you're in for when you sit down for an NFL game. 3.5 hours, Monday night, Thursday night. I know they're moving them around now. 1 o'clock window, 4 o'clock window, 8 o'clock window on Sundays, every now and then Saturday. Like you schedule your life around it. When I sit down to watch a soccer game here at 4 o'clock, well, right now, when I sit down to watch Germany play here in a few minutes, I'm in for 2 hours on the button. On the money, pre-show, halftime, post-show, 2 hours, done, bang, out. Because it's 45 minutes plus stoppage time, 20-minute halftime, back. Every major soccer match is exactly 2 hours. So it just fits the modern, and it's fast and it moves, especially when it's really high level like the World Cup. And then you put the pageantry in it. How could you not cheer for like Cape Verde? Like I found myself cheering against Uruguay the other day just because I'm like, nah, screw them guys. Let the little guys win. Like you get invested in Morocco for no reason whatsoever. It's just cool, man. And then we're really blessed in this tournament where you have some real like all-time living legends playing real. You have Messi on his last World Cup, you would assume at 39, and he's just destroying and crushing. And you have Mbappe, and you have Vinny Jr. yesterday, the Brazilian genius who just scored 2 more goals. The big name stars are really, really delivering highlights. And the other thing about it is, and I think this is really important to point out, America's sports infrastructure is just so better than the next 20 countries put together. It's not even fun. Remember, we didn't build a single stadium. We're not even using our big ones. Like they're not going to Beaver Stadium. They're not going to DOAC. They're not going to like you realize is it seven? It's like 7 or 8 of the top 15 biggest stadiums in the world are college football stadiums. And 6 of them are SEC schools, and the other one's Penn
Yeah,
State and Michigan.
yeah, you're not
Michigan's
the
the
big
third
house,
biggest. Yeah, the
right?
big house is the third biggest in the country because they got them god awful bench seats still. That's the only reason they have, and that's why they keep them because then it'd go down to 90,000 or whatever. You know, Beaver Stadium, Penn State. You start looking at some of
Knoxville,
these schools. Tennessee's,
Knoxville, yeah, like a
yeah,
100,000.
Neyland
Neyland,
Stadium's 101. A&M's is what 100, I think now. Allen Field, like we're not even using
yeah,
our big stadiums, but then like SoFi. People that don't understand, SoFi Stadium is like 3 levels up from any other stadium that's ever been built. It's an Apple store. It's completely open, but it's covered.
right. It's like a
Mercedes
fabric
Benz
roof.
Mercedes
Yeah,
Benz is the greatest indoor stadium I've ever seen in Atlanta. If you've never been there, it's just accepted. Jerry's World is great. It's a shame they're putting it in the dump that is MetLife Stadium, which is just a beige government hallway of stadiums. There's just no character to it whatsoever.
yeah, which I think was the most fascinating thing to me. I guess because it's USA and 250th and all that sort of stuff. But to me, it seemed like you got to go back to the Rose Bowl
I
because
would.
the
The
Rose
Rose
Bowl in
Bowl is such a
'94
great
was.
venue, but it's very, very poor on all the stuff that matters at a World Cup.
That's true. That is true.
It look on TV. It looks awesome. It's a horrible fan experience. Pasadena's rough to get in and out of when you pump 100. Pasadena's a beautiful place, not when you're trying to put 100,000 people on a 3-acre lot. If you've never been to Pasadena, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is not fun to get in and out of there when it's busy. It looks great on TV. It's not a good fan experience. The other thing about this World Cup, it matters that we're finally good at it. We finally, our long manager nightmare is over. We got a competent manager that seems to know what he's doing. Our best players are in their prime, are in their primes, and they've all been playing overseas for 10 years now. Their season, like we have world class players, not one or two. We've got 3 or 4. You know, Weston McKennie is one of the best players in this tournament, period. You know, he's one of the best players in the Italian league, period. Not best American, which has always been the kind of the thing, right? He's that good. Pusilic has his issues, but he's that good. Like, you know, Milan pays him a lot of money for a reason, even with all his issues. We just have world class players for the first time pretty much ever. Are we top 10? Yeah. Are we top 8, 7, 6? Probably not. Should we be that 8th, 7th team that gets to that area, and we should be able to give a top 6 or 7 team a game? Absolutely. That's the standard we should be at right now. And anything short of that, I think, is a disappointment. But I don't want people who don't follow the game to understand how important and how successful we've already been comparatively, because it's been a disaster. USA Soccer has been a disaster. It's been an embarrassment with the Berhalter thing and the Claudio stuff and the soap opera BS and the power. It was embarrassing, and now we're just good. Period. Good with no modifier, no adjective, no. You don't have to contextualize it. We're a really good soccer team, and we're playing like it when it really matters the most. And we should have a lot of national pride in that, considering, yeah, this is probably 5th or 6th on the list of sports in the country, and we're dominating it. And by the way, we're the only country in the world. I got in an argument with somebody in the UK. I think they were like, well, I was like, do you understand you could have the Olympics or the World Cup in LA by itself, or Dallas or New York or Atlanta tomorrow, and not build anything?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to build a single thing. Go look at, they're spending, I think, 5 or 6 billion on this World Cup. The Qatari World Cup was like 200, because they had to build everything from scratch because it was a sham job to start with or whatever.
Yeah, and there was a human rights cost to that as well. 'Cause they had to
If something,
import.
you know, the Olympics are in LA anyway, but if something happened in an Olympic city where, you know, natural disaster, just something happened, they go, we need to put the Olympics together in 2 months. Like, the
We can
list of
find
cities that could do that is pretty much LA, New York, Atlanta, Dallas, and that's it. And they could do it. LA could do it. You wouldn't have to build a thing. You have all the stadiums for a World Cup. Right? You got 5 or 6 top flight soccer venues. Throw the Rose Bowl in there. It's still viable. It's better than a lot of overseas venues. Still, even by our standards, where it's dilapidated a little bit. You know, you just got so much infrastructure. We are the greatest country in the world, and we're the richest country in the world, and it shows up in sport. And when we take a sport seriously, we're really hard to beat in it. America.
Yeah, I wore the wrong shirt because I got to get my 250th anniversary Hawaiian shirt.
As long as it's not a Lee Greenwood shirt.
It is not a Lee Greenwood shirt, and I've said in an alternate and better universe, Toby Keith's song ends up taking over for Lee Greenwood's song, and then, you know, Lee Greenwood isn't a thing, and R.I.P. Toby, but
I get so tickled because people don't realize he literally sold that song in Canada as God Bless Canada with the exact same tune, just changed the lyrics to Canada. But now he's back to, like, come on, guys, what are we doing here? And I was burned out on it during the first Gulf War. I was already, because that's when it really got popular, was the first
Yeah.
Gulf War, right?
I do
And
remember
I was
that.
just like, God, so I've done my 40 years of this nonsense. I don't want any more of it.
Oh, good old Lee. On that note, Andrew,
Yes, sir.
thank you for your time. I always appreciate it, and we'll of course do this again at some point. But I hope you have a really good 4th of July 250th anniversary. I hope you enjoy the World Cup, and I hope you can figure out a way to get to our fair city of Chicago at some point.
I want to go back. I was just talking to my family, like, we need to go back. We hadn't been in, I think it's 3 years now. You know, I want to go to Italian Village and just watch them work because it's amazing, and the food, and The Christmas market is what we went for last time, and it was wonderful. By the way, Chicago Christmas market, highly recommend. Make a trip, fantastic stuff. That was also the year they split it, where they did it there and they did it at Wrigley at the same time. So we did
Yeah,
both. That was cool. That was
yeah.
really cool.
The area around Wrigleyville is really. I mean, the purists, the traditionalists are like, well, I don't know, maybe this is a little
I thought it was
corporate,
cool. Yeah.
but it's done well, and they use the space outside pretty well, and they use it quite well in the off season. I think you can go ice skating
Yep.
there
Yeah, they
in
had
the
the
off
rink.
season.
They had the rink as part of it, but I got tattooed in Logan Square. Does that count?
I guess,
Okay,
yeah.
very good enough.
Congratulations, congratulations on that, Andrew. Thanks for your time. We always appreciate it.
Anytime, sir. Talk to you soon.